are open to you. Please call us on 0702 500 7749 or 0701 424 2420. If you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, this is the time to subscribe now at Official Upgrade TV. We'll go on a break right now, and when we return, we'll talk about the headlines making waves across the globe. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Now let us take a look at what's making the headlines today. Today we'll be highlighting the top stories from the pages of The Punch, the local, that should be the Nigerian Tribune, and of course the International Guardian. As usual, God's Beauty will take us through the international news this morning. All right, straight into the international newspaper, the Guardian newspaper. By the top left corner, we have the Oscars 2025, the winners, the shock, and all the awards. Top right corner, end of an era, singing butler artist Jack Veterino dies at 73. Now, main headline have United States rift with Ukraine grows as Europe seeks ceasefire. Right column just below the newspaper title, we have ministers to tackle crisis over school special needs. So I want to quickly touch on the United States rift with Ukraine grows as Europe seeks ceasefire. This is just giving more updates on what's really going on, in that space, or do I say continent now. So we have the tensions are rising between the United States and Ukraine as Europe pushes for a ceasefire in the war with Russia. Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky's comment about the war lasting much more longer have frustrated former United States President Donald Trump. I don't know why that is frustrating him, but moving ahead, we have the meanwhile, European leaders are exploring partial ceasefire agreement, and the United States support for Ukraine appears uncertain, which is something we already know. Now, the conflict in Ukraine has major geopolitical and economic implications. If United States support for Ukraine weakens, it could shift the balance of power in the war and force Europe to take more on larger role in negotiations, right? Now, a rift between Ukraine and its Western allies could also impact global security, military aid, and diplomatic relations. Now, there is a growing uncertainty over whether the United States will continue its strong backing for Ukraine, particularly if Trump influences policy decisions. Now, a divided Western response could prolong the war, making a diplomatic resolution harder to achieve. Additionally, a lack of coordination between allies might leave Ukraine in a vulnerable position, potentially strengthening Russia's hand in the conflict. I think this move from the European leaders is something that I would consider a good news, because we already know what's going there. I mean, yesterday we were having a conversation about the fact that Zelensky has refused to, go with the whole ceasefire thing. And of course, I mean, his own reason is definitely very valid, because as the leader, taking over the country, it's in your hands to ensure that there's security and all of those things for your country. And given that the United States are not ready, I mean, we're looking at Trump. Trump only just wants to take what he has to take for him to give you whatever. So now that the European leaders have looked at it and said that, okay, if this war continues, we already know for sure that the Russians will definitely win, given, the status of the Ukraine government and, where they are right now as a country. So now the fact that the Europeans have decided to go for this ceasefire, I feel like that's what works. Because again, at the end of the day, they don't talk. If they don't talk about it, there will definitely be damages, because we already know that Russia has, there are some countries in Europe that share borders with that of Russia. Do you get what I'm saying? So of course, if anything happens to Russia or Ukraine, it definitely affects, the other countries in Europe. So I think the fact that the European leaders have come together for this ceasefire, I feel like that's a good news, and that's something that we should be looking forward to. Yeah,
so
because now there'll be
picking the lesser evil.
Yeah. So yeah, because with that, there's no tension. There's nobody sharing anybody. There's nobody giving anybody materials or anything. Everybody's on their own. And I just wish that there will be probably a truce at the end of the day where everybody comes in terms with probably negotiate on whatever. Then everybody just go their separate ways. Then we can happily now say, thank God the war is over. But then you can literally just start from the start. So the fact that the European leaders came together to talk about this, I feel like it's a good start for peace to reign in these countries. What do you think about this, Oluchi?
You asked me not to mention anything about Trump today.
No, but we are not talking about Trump. Literally.
No. I don't even want to hear it. Please go straight into your papers. Thank you, ma.
But I'm coming back tomorrow, guys, and I'm going to talk
Fear
about
her
this.
return.
Oh, yeah.
Fear my return. All right, the Nigerian papers has interesting stories here as well. The major headline reads, Lagos Assembly Speaker Crisis. Nigerians await next move as Obasa returns and Miranda resigns. Closure of schools during Ramadan in 4 northern states is a setback, says the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN. Reps extend deadline for submission of memoranda on state creation and local government areas. I'll take this other story. NDLEA nabbs drug baron after 17 years in hiding. And of course, the one that's been trending for a while, the Natasha Nakpabio story, it says here that South stand behind Senate President King Dakolo, reject calls for Akpabio's resignation. I'll just talk briefly on this closure of schools during Ramadan, and that's because of the commentary that the Christian Association of Nigeria had to put for this cause. Over the weekend, I think last week, we saw that they wanted, I don't know how long, but it was
I think for 5 weeks. Yeah.
5
That's
weeks.
a month and a week added.
I taught in secondary school once. I know that a typical term is about 12 to 13 weeks.
Yeah.
So taking away 5 weeks, what do they have to learn? And then the Christian Association of Nigeria came out to say that this is very outrageous. That would this be done as well when we want to take Lent break? The Christians have this Easter break that they do.
Yeah.
So should it be that when every religious organization wants to practice or do some special or sacred things, the educational system should come to a stop? So it was more like, okay, if you guys are taking this too, maybe we Christians should start having 5 weeks. I know we have Easter breaks here and there, but it's not 5 weeks. It's usually the Monday of it, the Friday, and everybody is back to normal.
Yeah.
And this is a call. A lot of people have been giving different commentaries to this, but the North is a state that needs attention. The North are facing insecurity, low literacy. People are not empowered as much, and this is not trying to bring any state or region down, but the facts and the numbers prove this. If there's anything that can help us get better, is the educational system, and if we're getting it wrong with that structure and system, we're not making headway as we ought to. So I think a lot of things should be looked into.
I completely agree with you. Well, thank you for listening to us. That's all we have on the papers this morning. This morning, we're going to be shining a light on a critical issue that affects millions of women and girls around the world, including here in Nigeria. We'll be taking your questions and comments live on our social media platforms, so be sure to join the conversation. We'll be right back after this break. Stay tuned.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light from my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we will bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about violence against women and girls, and we're going to be addressing violence against women and girls is a pandemic that knows no border, no culture, and no socio-economic class. It's a crisis that affects not just individuals, but the entire communities and societies. As I said, today we're talking about the unseen and the unheard voices addressing violence against women and girls. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. And this is a crazy number because that's almost saying that every woman has. In Nigeria, the statistics are equally alarming, with millions of women and girls affected by violence every year. Today, we'll be discussing the root causes of violence against women and girls, the challenges in addressing this issue, and the solutions that can help us create a safer, more equitable world for all. Joining us is an amazing woman and child rights advocate, Betty Abah. Betty Abah is an award-winning journalist, author, and public intellectual. She's the founder of the popular See Hope, a non-profit working for the rights and development of marginalized young people and their families, especially in low-income communities across Nigeria. Welcome, Betty. Good morning. Do I have Betty here?
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to also meet you virtually.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so let's get right into the discussion. I want to first start off by applauding what you do in See Hope and how you cater for, women who have gone through abuse, from, therapy to creating shelter and all of that encompassing. But I believe that there are some common challenges that you have seen that women and girls face generally, which I might know, but other people don't know. So can you highlight some of the most common challenges faced by women and girls who experience violence against them?
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say that the biggest challenge is the society, the fact that people cannot speak up because of the culture of violence. A lot more issues that women go through, women and girls go through, are not in the public space. because people want to keep things quiet. Families want to ensure that their children retain their marriageability. So a lot goes on that are not in public space. And also many times the people that are oppressed are those that are of the low income, from low income backgrounds. And so there's an issue of the oppressor having a higher power to oppress. And so, and then of course the law enforcement agencies are compromised, terribly compromised. So we don't get to hear much of the voices of the oppressed in terms of gender-based violence.
All right, thank you so much, Betty. And we are super glad to have you join us here. This month or this week, we're going to be opening things about this. And beyond the generic questions I will ask, I would also love to hear stories and, you know, encounters that people who are in the forefront of this battle actually face, so that, you know, even the viewers and audience can connect to real life. So looking at your bio, reading through what you do, it shows that you have gone into the trenches, per se, you know, to dig up cases and everything. I want you to tell us one major encounter that actually shook you to your core, that made you realize that this is why you're doing what you're doing. Just share with us.
Okay, I think it's a lot. It's a lot. And sometimes I also have issues with trauma and all of that, encountering so many of the issues. But one major case that I encountered, I can't forget. And at the end of the day, we had to shoot a short movie, a social commentary movie around it. Was the issue of rape in one of the communities, where the father of the girl was beaten up and was thoroughly disgraced by the police. The girl had been raped by 4 young men in the community, and the parents of the young men quickly got in touch with the police, and of course, money changed hands. And then at the end of the day, the father was beaten and detained by the police, the father of the girl who had been violated. And we had to take up the case. And at the end of the day, the Ogun State Police Command got in touch and got the boys, the young men, arrested. And at the end of the day, the girl got justice. The police, but I had assumed, I had thought that normally the IPO in the case who had compromised should have been publicly shamed and sacked, dismissed, but he was not. By the end of the day, the girl got justice. She was 16 at the time, 16, 17 at the time. And from then, the cases of rape has reduced drastically in the community. And we also start seeing that the police would take sides with the culprit against the victim. And that was because of superior money that had changed hands, as is typical with the Nigerian police force.
Thank you so much. I like the story that you gave, because it will help me, explain this question I want to, ask now. Because the truth is, just like you said, this person, thank God that she got the justice that, that she need. But you see that, I mean, the IPO in question that you made mention of was not disgraced or anything. It was more like, thank God she got the justice, but somehow the case was more like just there, and, it just went smoothly. Not many persons even know about the story. And this is something that happened a whole lot of times, and that's why we're even talking about this topic. So I want us to, come from the angle of the current policies and the current laws that we have right now. Do you think it's sufficient enough to protect women? Do you think it's sufficient enough to protect women from all of this violence that we have? Or is it that it's the implementation of those laws that is the problem? Now, if you think that those laws are not sufficient enough, what laws and what policies do you think should be put there in order for the, women's protection to be probably taken care of? Yeah.
I think I would say that we have more than enough laws in the country.
Right.
We have more than enough law. We have the most current is a 2015 Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act that was enacted under the Goodluck Jonathan government. It's extremely comprehensive. But the issue, like you hinted, is that of implementation. And of course, awareness. People are not aware of their rights and where to even go to seek redress for the violation of their persons. And so awareness, especially as due to implementation in the country, is corruption on the part of law enforcement agencies. And because, like the case I just talked about, imagine the police fighting the victim and her parents because they didn't have money. So you go to a police station, and the first instinct of the officer on duty that had been assigned the case is, how much can I make from the case? And so when you, the person reporting the case, the victim, you don't have as much money to match the superior money power of the perpetrator. You don't have a say. And it's not likely that you're going to get justice. And so that discourages people, because they say at the end of the day, so what's going to come out of it? And then, of course, you have the issue of stigma. So it's a major issue, implementation. We have all the legal stumbling block is implementation. And then people are not aware of their rights. And of course, with the progressive impoverization of the masses, majority of Nigerians are poor and struggling. With the progressive impoverization of the masses, people are no longer able to stand up for their rights. Poverty is being weaponized. You just hear recently of a woman at the highest level of lawmaking in the land, a senator complaining of sexual harassment. And then we see all kinds of bloggers bringing up receipts and everything to shame her. And we see a group of women rallying around to protest against her. This is a complainant, for goodness sake. And then she's been blackmailed, she's been railroaded, she's been, all kinds of emotional blackmail. So, and at the end of the day, when you look closely, money has changed hands, allegedly, as we say these days. And so there's a lot that needs to be addressed. People can no longer stand up for their right because they don't have the money. They don't have the means to bribe police. They don't have the means to match up with the perpetrators. And so as long as people remain poor, they will continue to remain oppressed. And so the laxity in law enforcement and poverty are major hurdles. And we see that every single day. We see that every single day. You go to the police to report a case, and then they're asking you, what about money for biro and for a size book for them to report? So that's, from that starting point, you don't even stand any chance. You just do not stand any chance. And so there are persons that are speaking truth to power, calling for accountability and highlighting some of these injustices, especially against the very, very poor and vulnerable. And as the conversation continues, maybe we'll get there one day, but as in terms of the laws, we have them, but in terms of implementation, it's very, very low. It's very, very low.
All right, Betty, now that you've even mentioned about this policy, the VAPP by Jonathan in 2015, some research have shown that it's actually just 24 states out of 36 that have domesticated this law. And some even, streamline it to the northern states, how that in the north we see how, in fact, the recent news and stories we're hearing about how, like we just read in the Tribune this morning, and even from last weekend, that 5 weeks have been taken away from the educational system because of some fast. So the north already faces a whole lot of this problem. I'm asking this out of curiosity. Why is it that we have this gap? I know that even the ones that have this policy per se are not implementing it as such, but we still have places in this country that it's not even there. It's not a thing that is being discussed at all, most especially in the north. So with what your community is doing and your agency, do you think that it is going to get better and it actually infiltrate the north? Because I think that that's one place or region that people do not pay a lot of attention to. And that's why we keep seeing some of these stories keep rising.
Yes, thank you very much. The issue of the 5 weeks break is extremely worrisome. And for our organization, which focuses on the empowerment of children and young people from low-income background, especially with regards to education, is really depressing that the people in charge of the destinies of millions of young persons across the north are not really out to really do the work for which they've been elected or even selected. How do you take away 5 weeks from the school time, from a single term of a region that is one of the most impoverished in the world, in a country with the highest number of out-of-school children, and majority of them from the north? So if there's any group of people that should be serious about educational empowerment, it should be the politicians in the north. But obviously, they are not just interested. And you can be sure that not a single one of them has their children in any of the schools they are shutting down for 5 good weeks. It's an embarrassment on them. It's just an international embarrassment, as we say, on them. And it goes not just at the level of education, it's multi-layered. That also goes to show that they do not have regards for the protection of their own people. If you cannot work towards the educational empowerment of your people, then how would you even bother about gender-based violence? And that is part of the reason why, those are some of the factors responsible for why the North, especially the politicians of the North, will not want to domesticate the Child Rights Act, the VAP Act, and other things that would protect their women and girls, because they're just not interested. We had a president from the North who said his wife's priority and topmost job is in the bedroom and in the kitchen. I mean, that was the president. So you can see where that is coming from. So it's just embarrassing. But like you said, we just have to keep making noise, keep drawing attention to these anomalies. And of course, there's hope. There's hope because there's a whole lot of young people from the North that are speaking up, that are addressing these issues very passionately and I mean, not in a subjective way. They are addressing the issue subjectively. Some of the people that have criticized this move by 4 or 5 northern states to shut down schools for 5 weeks for fasting have people from the north. People have always fasted in this country and across the world, and they go to work, they go to school. Why would you shut down? I mean, a school for millions of? How would you? I mean, keep millions of children at home for 5 whole weeks?
Exactly.
And are children even supposed to fast? And many of the schools are private schools, and many of them are not Muslim schools. They're not fasting. So why are we keeping them at home with the rest of the fasting population? So it's not about the people, it's about the people, the politicians, the critical policymakers from the North who are not interested in the advancement of the North.
Thank you very much, Ma. I like how you have highlighted the problems and what should be the proposed solution. First of the politicians or people who are at the forefront of implementing positive change towards their state have refused to, and that is a problem. And the solution should be that they should take heed to start doing that now. It's not too, I believe that it's not too late for them to cancel the whole 5 weeks thing, but it's almost like he has gone deaf ears after announcing it. So it means that no matter what anyone says, he has announced that there's a 5 weeks break and that's about it. So I keep wondering, can they be like, fine, he's the governor of the state, can they be like an higher authority that sees reason to why this should not exist and can now say categorically that I request or demand that this be cancelled because it does not align, first, with the sustainable development goals, secondly, with the journey at which Nigeria is even working towards? Is there a higher authority that we can maybe call out to or demand such requests from?
Yes, of course. Fundamentally, Nigeria is a secular state. And this is fasting is a religious obligation. So religion cannot override the powers of a secular state. Constitutionally, Nigeria is a secular state. And so I believe that what they're doing is illegal and is an assault on the educational rights of young people. Education is a major right. And by shutting down schools for 5 weeks, which is not a break, just arbitrarily like that, it's an assault on the educational rights of Nigerian children. And I believe that the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Education, should bring a stop to this because they have an overriding power. They are operating from federal force. They are operating from a higher, more superior standpoint. They are supposed to have just stopped all of these things. But of course, in Nigeria, politics plays a lot of role, a major role. And so when there are critical decisions that should be taken, the people are considering 2027, considering 2031, I mean, years that they're not even going to be alive. They're just considering their political fortunes and possibilities. And so they're very, very tact. I mean, they're very, very diplomatic in addressing some of these fundamental issues that should be outrightly addressed. I believe there is a lot of conversation going on around the presidency, especially because this is an international embarrassment. Everyone knows that Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, and this has been on for like 10 years.
Exactly.
Every statistics all over the world points the way of Nigeria. And in pointing the way of Nigeria, they point in the way of the North. Majority of those children are from the North. Even in Lagos here, where we work with children, many of the children who had to enroll in school in the last almost 10 years, a vast majority of them are from the North. Children that are displaced, children from low-income communities, and they are fundamentally as a result of the fact that the northern leaders have not paid attention to education. That's why you have the highest number of ultra-poor people in Nigeria from the North. If they are educationally empowered, that is, there should be some middle ground in terms of economic status. But it has not been, because these people are just not interested. They want to retain their Almajiri system. They want to retain a subservient population and all of that. And this is what we're seeing. So I want to see the federal government intervening in this issue, because it's not just that the conversation is ongoing in Nigeria. I believe it's already ongoing across the world, and it's an embarrassment. You can't have the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, and then you are going for 5 weeks. I mean, it's just counterproductive. It's an embarrassment. It doesn't make any single sense. So we want to see the federal government intervening and saving all this international embarrassment, because it doesn't make any sense. People can still fast and go about their day. They can go to school. Children that are old, people that are old enough, I mean, young people, they can see. They've always done this. Saudi Arabia, which is the headquarters of Islam in the world, do the government shut down schools for 5 weeks? It doesn't make any sense. It's good that Christian Association of Nigeria, that's CAN, has spoken up, and many people are speaking up. I believe that they will see sense and, just back down, because it's just an embarrassment. There's absolutely no meaning. And this is not an assault on Islam. This is not an assault on fasting. This is just mere common sense. People can go to school and still fast. This does not, shutting down the school does not, I don't think that is an obligation to God, especially God. I think it has to be stopped.
Thank you very much, Ma. We'll go on a quick break right now. When we return, we'll dive deeper into justice solutions and healthcare support services for people who have experienced violence, especially women and girls. Please stay with us.
Life is made up of moments, some that fill us with joy, others that test our strength. Welcome to Heartlines. This is our space to explore the highs and lows of human connection, the love, the heartbreak, and resilience that shapes our life. From relationships to friendships, parenting to partnerships, and so much more. Every week, we share stories and conversations that define us, navigating love, separations, the struggles of parenting, dealing with anxiety and managing the pressures and stress of life. Real conversations that bring us closer, helping us heal, grow, and connect. So join me Mondays through Fridays at 10 p.m. for Heartlines, the show where we'll connect hearts, have real conversations with real people, one story at a time.
Welcome back to the show, people. So I will quickly let God's Beauty take a question before I go further to ask Betty all the pressing questions that I have in mind. God's Beauty.
All right, thank you so much, Betty. When you were speaking earlier, you made mention of awareness, right? Creating awareness for people, and you made mention of the fact that the reason why there's still violence and the things that women are suffering from right now, it's due to the fact that many people are not aware. So I want you to expatiate on that. When you're talking about awareness, I want actionable things now, because the truth is we've been talking and talking and talking, and there's really no action. Did you get what I'm saying? So when we talk about awareness, I'm talking about social media awareness. I'm talking about creating seminars. How actionable should this be working? Let's see the action. Let's see the results of this thing, of this awareness. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
All right, thank you very much. I would say that when I talk about awareness, of course, it has to do with the access to vital information, life-saving information on the part of people from low-income communities, because many people that have means, that are relatively educated, they're on social media, so they are aware, they need to shout out, they need to reach out to this agency. But the majority of Nigerians, especially from the densely populated low-income communities, are not aware of these laws. They are not aware on how to go about redressing, seeking justice. At least the higher they know is okay, maybe they can report to the police. Not many want to report intimate partner violence to the police, because your husband's family will say, even your own family, why did you report your husband to the police? It means that marriage is over. You mean you took your husband to police and he was detained. And of course, they also, even at that, they face a hurdle of, okay, do I have the money to give police for pen and paper? Okay, so, but then on a general note, I'm talking about information about the relevant laws, the Child's Right Law. In Lagos, we have the Child Protection Act, a law of 2017. And of course, the more popular Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which is very, very comprehensive, the VAP Act of 2015. Many people are not aware. And so what should have been done for people to be really equipped with information is grassroots awareness campaigns, and in languages that are comprehensible to these people. Is it in Pidgin? Is it in Yoruba? Local languages, vernacular, so that they know these are the available laws. We have abridged versions. This is what the law says. If you involved in rape, you go to prison either for life or for 60 years or for 14 years. Wife battery, this is what happens. So people need to know the law. People need to be equipped so that they can take it up and address their situation and redress their cases. And people need to be assured of government backing. People need to be assured of government backing, because I run a women's shelter and we've seen a lot. I think maybe one day I should write a book, like a 1,000-page book.
You should.
A lot. Yes, because there's so many cases that come and we are just depressed. We're just depressed. A woman comes to the shelter and then you give her all the assurances. She goes through psychosocial training and all of that. And everybody that she tells the story say, you cannot go back to this marriage. Your life is at risk. You are just a walking corpse. Do not go back. There was a particular woman, she came with her 3 children, everything. We gave her all the support, and then we gave her money for accommodation. But you know what? She took the money right back to her husband to renew the accommodation.
Can you imagine?
And she had been under intense, intimate partner violence for 13 years, non-stop. And it's just like you say, it remains small. Anything, now maybe the next time she hits her head against the wall, she's gone. Very intense physical violence. And then she went back because she hasn't come to a state where she knows that the Nigerian system is backing her. She's thinking of insecurity. Okay, after this accommodation, what's going to happen? And then, of course, the societal expectation. Because ironically, she's the breadwinner of the home. And so she has really nothing to lose. And I tell her, it's okay, what? I mean, you just want intimacy. Maybe you can remarry if that is what your problem is. She is not the only man on earth. But she went back. And we've had cases of people just keep going back because they are not equipped with the knowledge that you have to overlook societal expectation. You have to overlook stigma because it's It's when you are alive that you even talk about stigma, the stigmatization of being a single mother or being a divorcee. You just have to be alive first. So people need a lot to be equipped with a lot of all those information, a lot of awareness, a lot of reorientation. Women need to take a stand on their own. So information is extremely key. And NGOs cannot do this alone. We don't have as much resources as the government. So we need a lot of partnership to reach out to the very grassroots. I mean, the deepest grassroots, the people at the fringes. Because when you are dealing with poverty, you are also dealing with a lot of violence. We're dealing with a lot of gender-based violence. Majority of this thing, of course, you've seen on social media, majority of people killing their wives, doing this, wounding their wives, maiming their husband and all of that, it's shop money. It's job money. It's from the low-income community. So there's an intense pressure, and people are transferring it to their spouses, their intimate partners, their children. That's why we have a lot of women abuse, a lot of abuse of children. So people need to get a lot of those information where they can seek help. And some people have made themselves societal menaces. If someone is in a community, is defiling up to 20 children. They need to be shown that they cannot, that there is no anarchy, that the laws will take care of them. And once you have that kind of person being taken care of, being publicly disgraced and jailed, sentenced, tried, so prosecuted. So when you have that kind of situation, it will serve as deterrence, and other people will sit up and say, no, I cannot misbehave. If not, I will go the way of this man. I'll be locked up for the rest of my life. So we need information. We need a lot, people need to be equipped with a lot of information. Just as we went on break, someone sent me a text and said, my wife is armed and is at the door. He wants to kill me. And I said, okay, please quickly call, reach out to my friend Lolade, and she's going to take action. So people need to have a lot of those information, who to reach out to. This is a friend, a very good friend. Not everybody knows who to reach out to, the agencies to reach out to, I mean, where to seek help. So people need to have a lot of that information, and especially in languages that are comprehensible to them.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Betty. It's almost like as you were speaking, I was reliving some of the things that I have personally experienced. I run a foundation, and this is some of the things that I, in my own little way, handle. I've seen cases where a random person on the streets raped a 7-year-old, and we tried to take it to the police. From the police, we paid a lot of money, trying to get the person to court, to be arraigned, and all of that stuff. And it took such a lengthy process that it almost frustrated efforts. And even in that case, they were still blaming the 7-year-old for not speaking up. And this also applies to marriages where society sort of oppresses the person who is being, who is being oppressed already, to say, don't talk about it, don't do this, you're going to spoil your marriage, you're going to put your child in a bad light, you're not going to be marriageable again, and all of this stuff. But it brings me to wonder, so where does the justice come in place? Because if I'm fighting for, let's assume that that IPO you mentioned is the only person I have access to report such a case, and I know that that person is going to handle it like that, would I not give up? Not knowing that, okay, maybe I can go to maybe Ogun State Police Command to take it up. And sometimes people even try going from one police station to the next, and it all becomes futile. So how can women and girls now have access to justice, healthcare especially, because some of these people are violated without any form of care whatsoever beyond therapy? They need some type of bodily examination. And how can we also find other social support services, for these people? I'm a very passionate advocate for women and girls. So most of the time when I hear these stories, it saddens me to know that these cases most times always becomes futile. We're talking about unheard, unseen, and that is to say that apart from the things that you are even handling, there's still thousands and millions of cases which have been that have not been heard before and that have not been seen. So how do we address this issue that seems like there's no solution to?
I think a major light at the end of the tunnel is the presence of NGOs. NGOs are doing a lot. And actually, they also are unseen and unheard for most of the time. They're doing a lot. There are people that are working with people in the grassroots, and you've never heard of them. And the saving grace, as we say, is that when some of these things happen, they say, okay, go and call Auntie Lola, go and call Auntie this, go and speak to Auntie this. The particular case that happened in that Agbado community, somewhere in Ogun State, around here, was because a volunteer of ours lives close to that community, and then the ballet of the community, who had refused to receive bribe from the parents of the young men, called him and said, this is what is happening in my community. Can you help me reach NGO people? And then he called me and said, Auntie Betty, this is what's happening in this community. And then we had to run down to see how we can help. And so I think that NGOs are helping for the most time. NGOs are helping for the most time. And so that is like a major relief. And of course, apart from NGOs, okay, so NGOs are helping in that regard. But when you talk about the stumbling block, I don't think we've mentioned religion. Religion is a major stumbling block that we face, either traditional religion, either Christianity. The people in charge, the leaders, have manipulated and fabricated the teachings in a way that suits patriarchy, in a way that perpetuates the oppression of women and girls. We had someone in the shelter who was hypertensive and who was at the verge of losing her life as a result of terrible physical abuse from the husband. And the people that come to the shelter, we allow them to go to work, to go to church or the mosque, as the case may be, because it's not a prison. And then she went to church with her children, and she spoke to the pastor. This is what I'm facing. I'm currently in the shelter. And the pastor said, you know what? You need to go back to your husband. He's not at fault. It's ancestral spirits that are disturbing him. You know, I was going to say I will write a book about my experience running the women's shelter. This will be one of the stories, obviously. And she went back. She went back. Her case was extremely bad. The man would try to choke her and all of that. It was a terrible case. And we're thinking you need to move on, so to save your life, especially because you are hypertensive. But she moved back because the pastor said you need to move back. You are not fighting physical forces. It's ancestral spirits. So these are some of the things that we face. And so societal expectation, religion, and then poverty. So these are the major hurdles. And like I said, NGO is a major sigh of relief. They're filling the gap for where law enforcement have failed. There was a case recently of another case that we handled at the shelter. This girl had been raped at her mom's shop. Now their case was so bad, they had to relocate from their community to a Wekoro community where they have the Wekoro cement. And then they operated like a shanty where they cooked and then they slept there too. One day the mother was not around, and one of the workers at the Wekoro cement came to rape her. And then the mother got in touch with my friend Lola, who is very active in those things, and then reported to the Ogun State Police Command, reported to Punch newspaper, and took her to Mirabel Center. Mirabel Center and Sayara, some of the people that are doing great work in terms of in terms of responses to rape crisis. And so the community people got so angry that they were exposed. Why did you report to Punch newspaper? The case was everywhere. Why did you take the boy to be incarcerated at the police command at Abeokuta? Is it not just rape? He has apologized. What is it? And they demolished the shanty where they used for a shop and the accommodation. And they were homeless. They had to be brought to the shelter. It was a very terrible case. And then they had to relocate totally from the community. So we got them accommodation somewhere around the Jew. So that's where they are now, the mother and her daughter. And but how many, what resources do we have to really solve that kind of problems? How many of them are even in public knowledge? How many of them are we even aware of, not to mention responding to? So these are things that we see every single day. The society, the immediate environment turning against the the victims, the survivors, for speaking up, for embarrassing them. And nobody is interested in the mental health or even the physical health of the person that's been violated. It's all about why did you embarrass us? It's all about their reputation. And by the way, you don't even have any reputation anymore. You are a society, you are a neighborhood harboring criminals, rapists, perpetrators, predators, sex predators, so pedophiles. So it's good for the community, for the school and other people to take up cases and ensure that that person is punished. That is even a better way to save your reputation than to protect the person. Because when you protect the person, then you are seen as collaborators. You are seen as you are complicit in the entire crime.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Betty.
Yeah.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I really appreciate the work you do, and I donate my girls to the cause of advocating for women and girls also. We'll see you, our viewers, tomorrow again for another insightful, conversation about women and girls and what we can do better. See you. Bye-bye.